So this course will basically give an overview of what HANA is all about and RAP is all about. And we'll walk through the entire sessions, like what all topics we are covering in this. And like I will be covering the topics and giving you an overview. I would like to give a brief introduction about myself. So I have more than 6 years of experience and I've worked on both an SAP ABAP and RAP on HANA and BTP as well. I'm a certified backend developer and I've worked on multiple implementation, rollout, migration, and support kind of projects. And I'm both proficient in English and Hindi. So if anybody wants to talk in Hindi as well, I can respond in that language as well. So first of all, we will understand like why RESTful ABAP and what is the relevance basically. And as you all know, if you might have a background on the RESTful ABAP, we already had like ABAP developments and SAP. So why SAP is moving toward the RAP model and like what is the purpose for it? So first of all, like the three things that we can make out from this is like abstraction, first of all. So basically, we are like segregating the business logic. So whatever the development that we are doing, we are trying to push all the things into the CDS views. So basically, CDS views are nothing but like views of like whatever the extracts or the information we are taking out from the table. And whatever the calculations or whatever the, you can say, the data that will be majorly coming to the application, we are trying to achieve it through the CDS views. So we are kind of achieving abstraction over here. And basically, we are limiting the ABAP coding over here. So post on that, like we are creating the behavior definitions and all. So where we are defining like additional functionalities which will be there in the UI services. We'll go into the deep, but just an overview of that, like basically coding is getting minimized and it is getting abstracted over here. And definitely like we have the API developments and testings as well available over here. So a lot of things have changed in the RAP side. So the API development is like here it is mentioned like why it is efficient. So first of all, we need to understand that we have RESTful ABAP. So basically the rest is the reason that we are classifying it as an faster and efficient development because it's a stateless transaction, right? So during the stateless transaction, the efficiency is definitely expected to be increased as we are not holding the any kind of information post the execution has happened. So that is why the it is more efficient to compare to the so for the conventional ones. Then we have the options for extensibility. So yes, like if you have seen or you might have heard of the term like developer extensibilities or enhancements or like the earlier in the ABAP, like we used to have the enhancement, basically the framework of implicit and explicit enhancement. Here, basically, extensibility will be the extension of the standard applications. So we have like custom Fiori apps extension, and secondly, we have you can say the developer extensibility or side-by-side extensibility. So definitely, extensibility option has been provided from the S4 side, and as well as like things have become a different over here. So moving further, like SAP is also like trying to move everything towards the cloud side. Like we have seen like a lot of projects are now moving towards the BTP or majorly to the cloud direction. So you can say that ABAP on RAP will become like more of the future language. Where compared to the conventional ABAP, like we will be seeing like the language version will going to change on ABAP on cloud. And so if you find that like, is it the right thing we are investing? So definitely, yes, we are going on the right direction to learn this language basically, and whatever the changes that has been introduced as a part of the RAP developments. So definitely like it is going to be the future for the coming, whatever the implementations that we are going to plan. Just to give you a brief introduction of the architecture of RAP, so you might have been aware of it, and like some of you who are new to the RESTful app. So basically, we have like three-level architecture over here. So the basic is for the business object. So as I mentioned in earlier, also like whatever the data that we are trying to achieve here, we are trying to achieve it through the CDS, which is the core data services. So it is like we are doing the data modeling. So we can take an example of like if we have like some kind of order informations or a plan order informations. So the basic table that is there, we are trying to create a view on top of it or might be we are creating multiple views and combining those kind of informations. So those we can are achieving through the CDS. And then definitely we have the behavior definition and the implementation available to us. So where we are further creating a new object. So basically behavior definition was up until this now. We didn't have like this behavior definition. So this is a kind of a new object introduced by SAP. So we have the behavior definition where we specify like different functionalities which we are going to expect on UI or other API applications, like whatever the scenarios like action buttons or some validation determinations, those kind of things we can define over it. So we'll go in more depth in behavior definitions, and then we have like behavior implementation as well. So it is just like whatever the definitions that we have given, the implementation is like you can say we are creating a class implementation of the behavior definition, and whatever keywords we have specified, a default methods will get created, and we need to write some code based on that. So that is what you can consider for now the behavior implementation is. We'll go in much depth in this part. We will have when we have the hands-on session, we can understand it much better. But as of now, you can consider that the business object is like CDS, the behavior definition and implementation. So somebody asked like, what is BO? So this is basically corresponds to the data model part and the BO part. And then basically we have the business object projections. So like you can say that when you're combining the data and creating a data model for yourself, at that time you are not thinking completely about the business. You are combining like multiple informations, right? So suppose if you take an example of order and delivery. So now when you're creating a data model, you have combined the order and delivery based on some conditions, and then basically you have the overall result sets, right? And you can combine like multiple tables in that cases, like even you add the schedule lines and so many data you have combined. So that data model is like a major data model, or you can say a reference data model. But when it comes to the applications or the UI, which they do not require the whole information, right? So we need some partial information from that data model. So in those cases, we go for the projection views. It is well good enough that our data model is enough and we don't want to create a projection view. So I would not say that this is a mandatory thing, but yeah, definitely if you want selective fields and selective informations from whatever the data model that you have created, we go for the projection view. And same is going for the projection behavior as well and the implementation part. So like there can be multiple features that you have added to your application, but you might not be needing all of them. So based on since we are having the partial information, we are going to have the partial you can say projections and implementation as well. So definitely these projection behaviors and implementation are a part of that only. And then once this business object is created and we move towards the business service provisioning, so where we are having like the service definition. So service definition is also a new kind of object that we have come across. So earlier, if you have worked on CDS views, you might have seen like when we wanted to publish the CDS views as an OData service, we used to give the annotations as at the rate odata.publish to or something like that. So that kind of need is now no longer needed if we go here. So basically, when we are defining the service definition, we are basically exposing whatever the CDS views we have created. So in this definition object, we just specify like, okay, so and so serious views that are there, we are going to expose them. So that is sort of, you can say, get exposed as an OData service. And then finally, when we create a service binding, we have like two choices, or like we have more than two choices. But if you consider majorly for your projects, it will be like the Fiori UI app, or whether it's going to be the web API app. And we have further classification as V2, V4. Those kind of classifications are available. And then basically we have business events as well. So these kind of options are available when we go for the service binding. And yeah, so that is the basic of the architecture of RESTful ABAP. Moving further, we have like, first of all, I think a lot of you who have enrolled for this course or planning to enroll for this course, first of all, might be having some doubt like whether we are investing into the right course or not, and like what is the basically the benefits that we are going to derive from it. So first of all, like we need to have a clarity that if you currently explore the market, you will see like a huge shortfall is there for the, especially for the skilled RAP developers. And most of the SAP projects, as I told you, like there's a push from the SAP side that for cloud implementations and all. So like public private cloud is something that is the company is moving towards. So most of the projects you will find either like mostly the public cloud projects you will find a lot. So definitely in those like RESTful ABAP is the recommended approach. So in that case, like if you are getting the basic knowledge and like whatever the practical examples we are going to work, it is definitely help you going to crack those kind of interviews. Or if you are trying to move and make an internal movement, and definitely like the basic objective, I think, most of you people is like either you guys are already working on the SAP side and might be working on the ECC end and wanted to make a transition to the S4 or the HANA side or the RAP side, basically BTP side. So definitely like this course will help you in achieving that. And as I told you, like we are doing the REST model, so definitely there is a stateless advantage available. And with CDS views, like when we are going to go in much depth in that, we are going to see like how we are achieving actually the code push down and how we are trying to minimize the code actually. And definitely in terms of career opportunities, if you talk about like we have like grab developers, and specifically you might heard about the term like clean code developments and on public and private cloud. So yeah, like this is something like you can take it as an important interview question is also like what is clean code development and like how SAP is making a push onto that and like how in your development you are going to have this clean core concepts. So that is one thing. So basically, my aim in this teaching you this course is like first of all, like you guys should have a basic understanding of what the RAP is all about, like what are the different objects that we discuss as a part of architecture. Basically, you should have a clear understanding of all those. So whenever the interview questions are happening, at least you are able to answer what are the basic things is there. And definitely, like we are going to depth for each of those things. So yes, like high level exposure of how to develop those objects. And second thing is like we have a lot of real scenarios that we have decided. So, like today, we are not going to do a hands-on on those objects, but definitely in the coming session, it will be completely one hands-on session. It is not going to be a theoretical session. So, obviously, you guys can expect that we will be dealing with the real-world scenarios, and so that like you can explain your interviews, like what kind of project scenarios or what kind of requirements you have done as a part of an example. So, I think this will basically make you ready for like whatever the interviews or whatever the market requirements are there. So basically, my objective is that like when you are facing the interviews, at least you are confident enough to handle all those things. So that will be the overall opportunities and outcome of this particular course. So let's move further. Whatever the objects that we have discussed basically in the part of architecture, we will basically understand like what all the objects are there. Some of you might not be having a complete background with the SAP or might be transitioning from a different technology. So for the ease of understanding for everyone, I will basically covering first the basic of that and then we'll go into the depth. So as of today, it's a demo session. So first we have the serious views. So as I mentioned that serious is like a core data services. So if you guys have might have worked on SAP before, you might be aware that there used to be a DDIC view available and somewhere like if you are still using the on-premise, we do have that feature available. And then SAP basically introduced the serious views. So basically, what is the purpose of introducing the CDS views? Like you will be asked this question, like we SAP already had the DDIC view, then why we need a CDS views? So first of all, like if you take an example of the given in the picture, you see that basically even here also when the CDS view was first introduced, we had this at the rate ABAP catalog. So basically, this at the rate ABAP catalog and whatever the ones which we are starting with at the rate are like just the annotations. And here, if you see, the first one is SQL view name, it is giving and asking it. So, what is this SQL view name? It is actually what the DDIC view that was there earlier. So, when first SAP introduced CDS views, basically they were DDIC based partly So what was happening is like when we are creating the CDS view, DDIC object was also getting created. And basically we can give some kind of access authorizations, and basically end user text label is like kind of a description. So those are like some additional properties we are adding to the CDS views. So if you talk about the general, first of all, template of how the CDS view is going to look like, it is going to look like we have the definition, like we are going to define our CDS view name, and then basically it will be a select. So it will be a select from what? It can be select from a table. Here it is an order table VBAC. Otherwise, it can be a different view as well. And view in the sense like basically CDF views, not the DTIC views. And then basically we have something called association. So this we will cover in the few slides after that what is association. So basically you can consider it right now kind of a join. And then basically in the brackets we have specified the cardinality, and basically we are combining VBAK with VBAP. So basically order header is getting combined with order items information. And then basically we have written something like dollar projection. So basically we are referring to the field VBLN, and then basically we are equating it with the you can say the item VBLN. So that is like a join condition for us. And then within the curly brackets, we are specifying like what are the fields are going to be the part of our result set. So that is basically you can say how a general or the basic CDS view would look like. So now, like as we are moving more towards the BTP or the you can say cloud direction, this DDIC view space CDS view is actually you can say kind of becoming an obsolete, and we have more of a entity views available for us. So majorly like entity views are the ones where we this SQL view or the DDIC view didn't get created, and basically we are utilizing that. So that you can also keep in your mind that if somebody asks like what is the general template, you should first be explaining with entity as well. But if somebody asks like how CDS views actually started with basically with the DDIC ones, but we now have the entity options, and whatever the wrap developments that we are going to do, we are going to utilize CDS views as an entity. So definitely like an entity keyword will get added over here. And second thing is like the DDIC views will no longer be existing over there. And then definitely like we need to understand like you might have heard like semantically rich word over here. So basically semantically here means like in CDS we are have the flexibility to add the annotations, right? So annotations are nothing but like we are defining additional properties to the CDS. So when we define additional properties to the CDS, like we can add a lot of features to it. We can define the labels, we can specify like whether an authorization is needed, and we have like some annotations which are added at the field level, such as like currency quantity related, calculation related. So it is semantically rich basically in that perspective only. And definitely, if you talk about the reusable data model, so as I said in the beginning, like we when we are taking a select extract, it is taking from the database table or from the CDS view itself. So whatever the view that you have created it for your particular scenario, and might be that the information that you have added as a part of your field set, it can be utilized for other cases, then definitely you can create another CDS view and utilize this particular view. You can still take an extract from it. So obviously it is a reusable data model. And directly whatever the actions or the what we are trying to achieve, we are directly performing it as a on the database layer. Hence, you can say that we are achieving this code push down basically. Like through the extract only, we are trying to achieve whatever the calculations or whatever the informations we are trying to derive. And definitely, like from the performance point of view, if you talk about, so like if the earlier architecture, if we talk about of SAP, we have like the application layer, the database layer, right? So when we have created any table and when we are calling it, so usually we used to write a program, and there basically we used to specify a select over there. So basically at the application layer, we are trying to make the call for the database. So then it is going back to database. And then basically from the database layer, it is tracking the information and again coming, sending those information to the application layer. So what is it doing? It is like taking somewhat more time compared to this, where we are directly doing the development at the database layer. So whatever the information that is getting extracted, it doesn't has to be communicated to the next layer. So that is why like we see the performance and like easier way to like utilization from the utilization point of view. So that is the like the basic of the CDS view. Then coming to the behavior definition and implementation. So as I mentioned earlier, like this is a new object that has been introduced by SAP. So in the behavior definition, like first of all, like when the behavior definition is created, it is created on first of all on top of core data services. So once you have finalized your data model, so whatever the CDS views that you have used, like suppose you have like three, four CDS views which you are combining, and obviously there will be one view which will have act as the major one, and it will basically hold like all the three, four datas. So that main view is called as a root view here, and root is the keyword that you need to specify onto that CDS view. And then basically whatever the behavior definition that you are creating, that will get created on top of that particular main view. So you can consider that particular view as like a consumption view. And basically we'll go much in depth of like what is this consumption view is there, and like what is the root view. But just for in a high level, you can assume that there are three to four CDS views that are acting as the basic ones. And then basically we have one main view, which is having all the extract of the information from these, you can say child or basic views. And that parent view is basically the root view. And definitely, like in the behavior definition, we have like basically CRUD operations. So basically, as we are talking about an OData services, so definitely CRUD operations will be going to be there. So CRUD operation is nothing but create, read, update, and delete. These kind of functionalities we can specify as CRUD operations. And then basically, we have like some additional features like actions and validations as well. So those are like you can say non-conventional operations. So like create, read, update, delete, I think are self-explanatory. Basically, like when you're trying to create a new entry or we are trying to update the existing entry or deleting those entries. So that is something are pretty common ones. But if you go with the non-conventional ones, like for your requirement, you can receive anything. Like it cannot be like the thread straightforward. It can be anything unconventional as well. Like you might perform some kind of action, like maybe navigating to another applications or like updating the data, but before that you want like something of a kind of a validation or some kind of features over there. So for that, basically SAP has provided actions as well for the non-conventional operations. Even if you can say an example of uploading Excel files on those can also are comes under the action scenarios as well. So these kind of four to five things you can specify in your behavior definition. Like, okay, this is my data model and this is my behavior definition. And in this definition, basically, I am expecting these kind of operations can be performed for my application. And then basically, like we have like a classification for this behavior definition. So you might have heard about the word managed and unmanaged scenario. So like we have like two options, whether our behavior is going to be a managed one or it is going to be an unmanaged one. So if you think about it, like what is basically managed and unmanaged? So in a very layman term, if you try to understand it, so basically managed is something that is already handled, right? So whatever the operations that are defined over here, like create, read, update, and delete the standard conventional ones, those are already handled by the framework. Even the locking mechanism of that application is going to be managed by the framework. So here when I told you that after creating of the definition, we create an implementation where we create some class, and whatever the actions we have defined, a method will get created in the class. So that method doesn't require any kind of a code. If you go for the managed scenario, we don't need to write anything. The framework will itself handle those operations for you. So that is basically the managed scenario. And then basically when we have the unmanaged one, so it is going to be like all the operations that you have added, nothing the framework is going to handle, and for each and everything you need to write a code. So ideally, like if we talk about the clean core approach, the first objective when we create any kind of application UI or whether it's an API, our expectation is that we go for the managed scenario so that we are doing the minimum customization in that. But obviously, when we have some kind of scenarios where obviously the conventional operations are not sufficient enough and we want some kind of checks or some kind of coding to be done before those operations to be performed, then definitely we have to go with the unmanaged scenarios. So, like, these are the basic features. I think some of these features that I've additionally mentioned, like for you guys, like authorization and draft and these things, these you can say that we'll cover more in depth because draft and authorization, these are more depth scenario cases. Basically, draft, you can for now understand that it is like when you try to upload a data, and suppose you are trying to update your table, but if you have specified draft in your behavior definition, what it is doing is like when you upload the data, first the data is held in a temporary table and the user is able to see that information, okay, what I have uploaded it, and I can make some modification to it. That is basically the draft feature available to us. So this is very important feature and you might will come across a lot of in your developments, like what is draft functionality. And then basically we have behavior pool, right? So in the behavior pool, like basically when we have created the behavior implementation, we have like classes. So there is a behavior handler class and there's a saver class. Basically, those are the two classes within which your methods and get divided. So whatever the CRUD operations are there, they are in the handler part, and basically in the saver class, it is like you can say whatever the saving is happening. So right now you might feel it as a little bit complex or like too much information. But when we are going to see a practical example of it, like it will give you very much high understanding, like what I'm talking about. So as of now, like you can keep this as a overview of that. But definitely this ABAP class pool and what is basically those classes that I was talking about, the save sequence and the normal ones, we will discuss much more in depth. Then moving further, we have the service definition and the service binding. So the service definition is nothing but like as I specified, like we are trying to expose whatever the serious views that we have created. So this is a mandatory thing that we have to do, and basically it act as a you can say like not a projection, but it is like with the projection layer, we are creating exposing whatever the views that we have created, right? So the internal objects are not getting impacted, but they are just getting exposed to the auditor side. And definitely, like even in the service definition, you can have the extension scenarios as well. Like suppose you have created a service definition and later you have added or you have changed your data model, right? So obviously, once you have changed the data model, obviously you need to expose it for your consumption. So again, like SAP has given that feature that you can basically extend whatever the your service definition or the data model that you have defined to further levels. And then definitely, finally, we are coming to the service binding, where I have talked about we have the UI applications or the APIs. So first of all, like if somebody is new and might not be knowing what is a UI application or API. So API is like you can say a linkage that we are giving from SAP system to the external system. So through API, basically we do data transfer or some kind of scenarios where from the external system the are trying to reach to the SAP. So like you have like so many systems available like Salesforce or you have MuleSoft or you have multiple objects are available, right? Whatever the systems we are there. And like SAP is you can consider as a data source or a data lake for us. And then basically for the external system, they are just asking those information and maybe performing some kind of operations and then basically expecting the required details for them. So for that we basically create an API, and same is going for the UI application. So UI application is more on the SAP side only. So whoever the user that is utilizing the applications, for them basically UI applications are existing where they open the application, they do some kind of transactional activities like uploading the data or extracting the data or basically seeing the reports or kind of dashboard things. So that is basically the UI applications. And now coming to the protocol versions, we have V2 and V4. So basically V2 and V4 is like a version 2 and version 4 for the API services. So earlier when the first the definition and bindings were introduced, we only had V2, and post that we have also now received V4. So basically we can say that between the V2 and V4 there are some changes in the perspective. So like there is a difference in the, you can say, the protocol versions. Like features have been differentiated between the V2 and V4. And if you talk about like which one I should be using, so majorly from the push from the SAP side, we are focusing on the V4 side actually. Basically, V4 offers some of the features like when you are trying to suppose use an API, right? So during the use of the API, like we have like multiple calls like back and forth, right? So in the back and forth calls, basically this V4 utilization is much better. Like basically when the V4 call is happening, like the data transfer happens like much smoother, and basically it is more preferred compared to the V2 services. But if you talk about what are the shortcomings compared to the V2 we have in the V4, so basically in V4 we see that like sometimes there is some issues with like features that are available in the UI application. Some of the features will be disabled in case of V4, and definitely the activation scenarios are totally different for V2 and V4. In V2, you can directly see that, but in V4, like there is specific T codes through which we do the activation. So that is basically the difference between the V2 and the V4 services. And moving further, definitely as a part of this project, we are going to explore the Fiori side as well. So definitely like RESTful ABAP, if you all know that ABAP and the RESTful ABAP both are like the backend language, right? But Fiori is the front end language. And overall, like when we create any kind of an application, definitely whatever the UI part is there. So some of the UI part now currently we can do to the RESTful ABAP, but definitely like Fury is something that is needed for the front end part, like how our app is going to look like and how the additional features we can handle with the Fury. And definitely like if you are in the SAP projects, you might have got the chance to work on both, or you might be on one of the two sides, like either the back end or the front end. So definitely, like we have the RAP business models, and basically when we are exposing all those services, like the OData services getting generated, right? So now this OData services getting consumed in the Fiori end only. So with Fiori and like we have like designing a template, or you can say defining the how the application is going to look like, right? So for the ease of customization for the users, we are basically adding features like it can be a search or the tables. So those kind of features are available over here. So basically, I was trying to say that with the Fiori applications, like we have like these filtering, then the searching operations. So right, these are nothing but additional features that we are trying to add into the project, or you can say the application that is there that we have created as a part of our requirement. So definitely in this course, we are going to cover the Fiori part as well for ease of understanding, and now how like when we are doing the deployments of the apps, how it is going to happen and all those things. So we'll cover this in more depth. Moving further, we have this course overview actually. So for that, basically, I'll stop the presentation for once and I'll give you a walkthrough of whatever the topics that we are going to cover in much details. So basically, if you see over here, like as we discussed, right, we have the BTP and we have like the overviews. So this course is divided into multiple modules, you can say. And in the module one, basically, we will be talking about the business technology platform and like what is SAP S/4HANA and SAP BTP, and how RAP is being used, and whatever the scalability is available. And like today we discussed the architecture, but much more details we will going to discuss further in the sessions. And then basically the CDS views. So today we just covered one type of CDS views, but we have more depth for CDS views. Like we have like session variables, case statements, cardinalities, associations. These are key concepts for the CDS views, those kind of things. And then definitely like the authorization concepts are available. So the DCL as well, we will be covering in our sessions. And then basically the coding part, if we talk about. So basically here we are just expecting you guys to have a downloaded version of the Eclipse. Rest we will be taking care of. And then finally, we have the RAP applications that need to be covered. So as we mentioned for the managed and unmanaged scenarios, for both like at least two to we will give you as you can say real life scenarios where we are going to use the managed and the unmanaged scenarios and basically creating the applications for us. So it will be both the Fiori application and the UI application as well. And definitely what we talked about behavior implementations and all. So these CRUD operations and how we can add one operations into the you can say to the our applications and how basically this draft mode that I talked about we are going to handle in the transactional applications. And as we mentioned about the Fiori part, right? So UI integrations and the Fiori elements we are going to cover, and then some advanced RAP concepts we are having like event based and SAP event mesh. So these kind of things, and basically how we are going to do the error handling and debugging of the RAP application. So this is pretty much a very important part for you that what is the handling and debugging will be. Like most of the projects, if the RAP scenarios are already developed and some kind of additional features you are trying to add, then definitely error handling and debugging is something that you are going to need to do. And then post that, we have the optimization part available. So like we have like locking mechanisms and like parallel processing for RAP. So how we are going to handle those kinds of things. And finally, like the deployment and integration part, like why on-premise versus cloud. We will go much in depth, like how the BTP offers the better features and like how the integration scenarios are existing with the apps and the external APIs. So that is basically the overview of what all the topics that we are going to cover.